Jay, Guardians, bad. Go.
Awful, really.
Terrible.
Let's call it what it is. We were all excited at the All-Star break, some were, that the Guardians have the easiest schedule in the second half of all of baseball. Number 30 in schedule difficulty. How's that started? Well, 14 games in, they are 3-11 against bad competition. The New York Mets is a team that have given up on the season. They just dumped 8 guys. They were sellers at the break. They've shipped a third of their team.
The whole bullpen.
Out of town.
The entire bullpen.
Everybody gone. Get out.
Peace.
And they come into Cleveland. Now, they've given up on the season. The Mets have no hopes. They've given up. They have, I think, the 3rd worst record in the National League. And they came in here, and I wrote down some numbers because I couldn't believe these numbers. They got 38 hits in 3 games against the Guardians' A-plus pitching staff.
Aces.
38 hits. They had 9 home runs. And the 2 new pitchers yesterday, the starter got rocked, and the Yoho out of the bullpen got rocked. The best pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians during yesterday's 13-6 win
Give it to me, Jay.
was Austin Hedges. Once again, he was called on because I always called it embarrassment duty. Like, oh, we're getting boat raced, so let's save our bullpen arm. So, Austin, can you come in and pitch? Austin Hedges came in with the bases loaded and nobody out. Slade Ciccone came in to start the inning.
No outs.
He didn't record an out.
No outs.
He gave up 2 runs and left with the bases loaded. Austin Hedges comes in throwing bloopers, throwing BP. He threw 7 pitches. All 7 were strikes. He struck out 2 guys and recorded 3 outs and 7 pitches. If I were him, I would have walked into the dugout and I would have looked at all of my pitchers and said, that, boys, is how it's done.
Did you see the timer they put on the strikeout of Luis Robert?
No.
21 seconds from first pitch.
For the entire at-bat?
Entire at-bat. 3
Because he just gets
strikes.
it, throws it. He only has 1 pitch.
21 seconds. And Luis Robert's not a slouch. Like, he's obviously a good player. And Austin Hedges struck him out.
That's
not just in 3 pitches, but in 21 seconds. When we're talking about an Austin Hedges 21-second strikeout, Jay, is the highlight of the game and the highlight of the series for the Guardians, you know it did not go well.
Here's my biggest takeaway from the series and from yesterday. When the new guy comes in and hits the home run
Low, yeah.
to make it a 1-run game, Nathaniel Lowe, and you're thinking, okay, now this is a game they're going to come back and win. Because the night before, that was a gut punch.
Right.
They came back and took the lead and then gave it right away.
Right.
Terrible defensive play, 3 errors in the game. Nobody looks like they're ready to play. When they got to within a run, I thought, oh, okay, here we go. Then you need a shutdown inning. And what happens? The floodgates open. To me, I felt apathy creeping into Progressive Field yesterday. I felt it from the fans. I felt it from the dugout. I felt it from the ball players. The last thing you ever want to have happen to your ball club is apathy. And it crept in yesterday. They didn't care.
How and why? Because
I don't know.
Because usually, generally speaking, before we left, I left for 2 days. Bull and Jason, we were on together, and they talked about how it is that, you know, the guys in the clubhouse should be fired up, ready to go, because the organization has just infused your team with hitters and pitchers and getting you positions that you actually needed. So I don't know, how could you have Jose done came back, your young guys is playing well relatively. So my thing is, how can it be that in 2 days apathy is setting in?
Well, you know what's crazy is the best new addition was from the minor leagues. Angel Hano comes up and gets 4 hits in his major league debut. The Guardians Indians have been playing baseball for well over 125 years. He's the first player ever to do that. You know, and so you didn't really have to look outside the organization. This kid was down there. He's been major league ready for a long time. You can see it in his at-bats down in Columbus. And it takes until August to call him up. And they've got another young guy down there in Ralphie Velasquez, who I believe is major league ready. He could have came up. I was adamantly against making all these deals at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been sitting in this chair just about since June. I've been saying, this team's not very good, guys.
I'll give it to you.
This team is not very good. If you look at the offensive ranks, 30th comes up on all the major categories. We're not a good ball club. And I understand, well, let's try to become better. Well, and everybody said, well, we didn't give anything away. There were great trades. We got a lot. We didn't give anything up. Cozart was the 2nd-round pick just a couple of years ago when they took Pisano with the 1st pick overall.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that was drafted highly in our organization. You know what I don't want to see 3 years from now? I don't want to turn on my television and see him making an all-star team for wearing another jersey. Look at those standings, guys. We had, at one point, we were 11 and a half games ahead of the Detroit Tigers.
Facts.
If we lose our next game tonight and Detroit wins, we're in fourth place.
We're in fourth place.
And
that was not the case before the trade deadline, going into the All-Star break. You know, I agree with you. They starting to crack. I seen something this past week of baseball from the Guardians that I hadn't seen in a while. Stephen Vogt is typically cool, calm, and collected. I seen him argue after the rain delay. Then I seen him get ejected the game after that, and I said, this dude's
trying to light a fire.
Dude's either trying to light a fire or he started crack because
he's getting frustrated too.
He's getting frustrated.
Yeah.
I go back to game 1 versus the Mets. This is after the trades is made. We had the day off. You back at home. Energy is high. Optimism is high. You go out there in the first inning. You got the bases loaded. You don't produce no runs, right? Then you turn around. I forget who. I think it was Arias who made the throw in area.
Yep.
That cost Cantillo 2 more pitches that ended up turning into 3 runs in that inning.
Yep.
That set the tone for the entire series to me. And it's just
that's a good point.
To me, that Friday and those first 3 innings, it's like you all never recovered from that, and we ended up getting swept by a team after making the acquisitions we made that we should have beat.
And I think sometimes we take a look for granted this theory that the division is bad, and you know we got time to always figure it out, and no one's running away with it. But guys, we got to realize, I said it before. The White Sox, the Tigers, the Twins, they're looking at you the same way.
Yeah, they are.
Like, no one's
afraid of anyone in this division.
So it goes both ways. Like, we can't look and say, all right, like halfway through the season, you can say that in May, maybe June. But when people consistently is playing, I say you can't just make believe that the White Sox is going to fall off. Like, you have to go actually make somebody fall off. And you look at their schedule coming up. It could be a feast or famine. You got the White Sox and you got the Tigers. Now let me tell you something. You keep playing the way you playing, you'll be looking around where the Royals are. You can't go into them series and play around and lose them 2 series handily, and God forbid get swept.
If they play against the White Sox and Tigers like they did against the Mets, then they're going to lose 5 of 6, and they're going to be in such a big hole. They're going to be where they were last year. They better be careful.
Trying to climb out of it.
You can't do that 2 years
and that's what I told you. And it's like, for me, you know, I'm frustrated right now. But I told you, I said, man, I probably sound like a fool because for whatever reason, internally, I still haven't given up on them. The division is bad. And they were in a worse spot than what they are currently last year. And somehow they found a way to climb out of it. The problem is, to your point, everything had to fall exactly the Cleveland Guardians' way for that to take place. And you cannot bank on that being the case. For the love of God, get back to doing things like you said, like Mike Hargrove did. Find you a set lineup, play that lineup, and give this team a chance to actually perform.
Yeah, I wish. That's never going to happen. And I don't blame Stephen Vogt for that. I was pretty hot on that Wednesday, and I heard from a lot of people that said, you know, it's not Vogt's fault. I never once said it was Stephen Vogt's fault.
Right.
I know it's not. I know this is the mentality of this team. The front office believes that analytically they can sit there with their computers and their calculators and they can hand a lineup to Stephen Vogt that they believe is the best against today's starting pitcher.
I don't know when this happened, but I've never, maybe I've been disconnected. When y'all told me that they really is turning in lineup sheets for the manager, I'm like, well, what is he there for then?
That's half baseball, G. I don't think that's just in Cleveland.
I know. I'm saying in general.
Baseball.
Like, think about it. Like, look at Cal Manzardo. Half the problem that I think with Manzardo, half the problem with a lot of these guys is they're playing musical chairs.
Yes.
Like, some people need to go and know, I'm going to be in the lineup come hell or high water, whether it's a righty, a lefty, or whatever.
Yes.
I'm going to get my at-bats. And it's like you counting on people to come off the bench and be hot.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
Not in baseball.
Baseball's a rhythm sport. And so I've decided that the movie that started all this was Moneyball. It was, and I've always said Moneyball was built on this false premise. You know, they showed how the A's could strategically get Scott Hatteberg, who was a discard on Major League Baseball's pile of junk, and because he had a higher than normal OPS and on base percentage, that that would be the magic elixir. And they built the theme of the movie around that. And they showed him hitting one dramatic home run that helped them win a game to get to the playoffs. All of that was a mirage. They never talked about Miguel Tejada, who was the MVP. He was an MVP strike. They never talked about their starting pitching,
Barry Zitos
which was
of the
probably
world.
the closest thing to the Atlanta Braves
Right.
at that time that we had seen, the 90s Braves. And they ignored all of that, and they tried to push this idea that, look, Scott Hatteberg is the hero of the team. That's nonsense. He wasn't the hero of the team. But they made the movie look like that with some dramatic music and some slow motion on his home run, and everybody's like, wow, what a wonderful story.
Paul Sereno was the greatest Cleveland Indian.
Yes.
No, Paul Sereno was not.
No. And the really crazy thing was, that was the rise of Paul DePodesta. Jimmy Haslam bought the hype. Man. And he went and got a baseball general manager that he believed used Moneyball to create this wonderful thing, and maybe he can do it in football, which was mind-blowing that he bought that bait, but he did. The whole reason I say all this is that I get Moneyball. I get it. But at the end of the movie, they rolled the credits and said, although the Oakland A's never won a World Series, the next year, using the same Moneyball principles, the Boston Red Sox went on to snap their 75-year drought, and they won the World Series. Man, They never mentioned that the Boston Red Sox that year had the second highest payroll in baseball.
Facts.
Never mentioned it at all.
Did they use Moneyball properties? Yeah, they did in prioritizing on-base percentage and OPS and things like that. But they also used their checkbook, and that's why they won. And that's a full stop. There's no other angle to that story. So Moneyball started this. Here's the movie that we're in now, guys. Revenge of the Nerds. We are watching Revenge of the Nerds. The guys that are making the biggest decisions in these organizations are Harvard guys.
Yep.
They're Yale guys.
Yep.
They're calculator guys. Maybe they played some baseball at some level,
Valley people.
but they never played at a major league level where there's 162 games.
No real feel
and there's
of it.
feel and
No
there's
connection.
gut.
Yeah.
And it's astounding to me that now they're the decision makers, they're the king makers, and they've decided that managers really aren't that important. We can tell the manager who they need to play and be successful.
You know Tito, right?
Yes.
Did Tito have to turn lineup cards in?
I believe, and I don't know this factually, I don't. I believe that the reason Tito worked so well for so long here was that he bought into the idea of analytics are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. So if you're fighting analytics, you're looking for a job as a major league manager. The guys that have kept jobs and the guys that have got second jobs are the guys that embrace analytics because they know they can't swim upstream on this. This is where organizations are. And I'm fine with analytics.
But he's the biggest
think,
field guy ever, though.
Right. And what I think happened with Tito was I think it wore thin on him that it wasn't his club. It wasn't lineups were community decisions instead of the manager having the last call, and that's the way it is. That's just my guess. I don't know that for sure.